Okay.
These mics are so good. I just want to breathe in them. It's like ASMR. Oh. So you have an ASMR. I mean, no, you don't have an ASMR channel. The Unplugged channel. What's the new Unplugged thing that you're doing?
Right. So I've noticed that, all the travel content, the adventure content that I make is great and people love it and I love it. But I've realized that whenever I post stuff that's a bit more about life, navigating some of life's big questions, people just really relate to it,
Yeah.
And so I thought that I'd love to create a new YouTube channel which has content that's less about travel and the kind of lifestyle and more about that. So navigating life, basically, where I'll make videos that talk about some of the things that we might find taboo or controversial or difficult, and hopefully guide people a little bit. So for example, I don't want to have kids and I've never wanted to have kids. And that's something that I really struggled with throughout my life because it's something that nobody ever really understood. And a lot of people didn't take me seriously. And I felt like I was the only person in the entire world that felt that way. Turns out I'm not the only one. So I want to be making videos for people who may struggle with some of their choices. Like the first video on the channel will be about being child-free, why it's not such a weird or unusual thing. It'll be about, things like why I'm boycotting the makeup industry, why the four walls that we live in are killing us, all these kinds of tricky subjects that we don't talk about very often.
I love that. I mean, there's not enough attention paid on those type of issues and kind of navigating the complexities.
Totally.
Right? So asking the question and then entertaining some different resolution versus what the national media is telling you or what the Kim Kardashian is telling you, right?
Exactly.
We're taking our cues from the wrong people, I think.
Yeah.
And that sounds very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the whole goal is to just help people feel less alone. Like there is a community out there for everyone. And so that's the goal of the channel.
I love it. And it comes out, this is going to be on your YouTube, but a different channel.
That's it.
Completely different channel.
Yeah. So I'm just giving myself a lot of extra work.
Yes, it sounds like it. Because I know it's taxing already as somebody who does this. When I see you and I have the context of understanding how much hard work it takes to do that, I'm thinking, how can this woman live any of this if she's spending a lot of time, doing the video component of, which is a lot of work. How do you balance that? How have you figured to navigate that?
Yeah, I think it's very, very common for people to kind of watch YouTube videos and see creators living great lives, and it all looks so easy and effortless, but it's not. There's so much work that goes into everything, filming for YouTube, filming and taking pictures for Instagram, for TikTok, for Facebook, Instagram stories, editing, answering business emails, figuring out partnerships, finding your way, planning your route, planning your life. Like, where are you going to stay? Are you going to stay at a campsite, in a hotel? Having space for hobbies or like even basic things like exercise.
Yeah.
It's a 24/7 job for sure. So it's not easy. And I don't think I quite realized that it would be so crazy when I first got into it. But it's something that if you do it and if you continue doing it past that initial shock stage, then you just love it. It becomes your life. So this is my life. I love it. I'm so thankful that I get to live so freely. So, okay, it's a lot of work, but I can do whatever I want at the end of the day.
I'm curious, these are personal curiosities, which I think the audience might be curious to as well. Like, why are you doing this? Like, what is the reason? I'm interested in like what drives you because, you have had an amazing life doing the travel and everything else. But what is it that gets you up every morning and allows you to do this?
I feel alive. It's as simple as that. So before I started doing YouTube 4.5 years ago, I had a very different life. So, I kind of went to university, did like the traditional kind of conventional route. I call it like the highway of life, where you just kind of go from, school to college to a job in the city. You do all the things that everyone else does. And so, I got a great job at a startup in London. I was making good money, working as a manager, going out to the nice restaurants, hanging out with friends, living in the city. I was married. And it was all kind of like my path to success was in my mind at the time, like, okay, well, get the next promotion, get the next raise, get an apartment, like the marriage thing, all these things. But eventually I started realizing that, okay, I'm going through all these motions, but what am I getting out of it? I'm like, I feel so empty. It's like, am I doing something I actually want to be doing? Or am I doing this because it's someone else's dream for me? Maybe it's my family's dream for me, to have this kind of stable, conventional life. So the moment I realized that, I started questioning more and more and came to the point where I was like, well, knowing that I am unhappy in this life and that I don't want the conventional path, I can no longer turn a blind eye to it. Either I'll be always aware that this is not the life I want to live, but I'll continue living it because I'm too scared to change it, or I'll change it and live the life that I actually want to live. So I knew that I wanted to have my own business. I wanted to do something creative, and I wanted to feel free. Travel, maybe that's one way to feel free. So I quit everything, left my relationship, which I wasn't happy in, left my job, left my apartment, called my family, and I was like, hey, I'm going traveling for X amount of time. And they're like, you've gone mad? They really thought I had gone mad. And I just decided to launch a YouTube channel and start traveling and see how it goes. And that's why I'm here today.
Well, why do you think, so that sounds compelling. And when people hear that, even in my own world, I've done that. Like I've detached, in my case, the government and the military, and felt free living my own journey with my own company and stuff. And when I hear that, it's compelling. And when people hear that, it's inspiring. But most people don't do it. Why do you think that is? Why do you think people are tethered to this umbilical cord that is the constraints that society has outlined for them, and they're following the stereotypical path, feeling like they're in prison, having midlife crises, maybe even riding the wave to the end, and then regretting everything they've done? Why do you think that is?
Right. Well, I guess, there are people out there who do find happiness in the more conventional path, and that's awesome. That's great. But I think for me, it's about figuring out what it is that you actually want really and deeply. The most difficult part is just asking those initial questions. Because once you start asking yourself the hard questions, you run the risk of realizing that you need to change something. And that's really tough because,
confrontational. Vulnerable.
Yeah. And you might have a lot to lose. A lot to gain potentially, but a lot to lose. I was lucky in the sense that I was a 20-something-year-old. I had some strings attached, but not too many. I didn't have kids, didn't have like a mortgage or anything. But once you get to that stage, it becomes a lot more complex. So I think that it's really important to ask yourself those questions as early as possible. In your 20s, before you do all this stuff. And you can still change your life after. It's just, it becomes a little bit more complex. But I think it's a scary life. Honestly, like freedom has its price. As much as I love traveling the world and doing my thing and being free, it's horribly unstable. At the end of the day, I'm a freelancer. I'm at the mercy of YouTube views and partnerships. I don't get like a stable paycheck. I don't get a pension from this. I don't know where I'm going to go next. There's no guarantees of anything. And of course it gets lonely as well. Because, I'm out there like on the edge of the world doing my thing, and sometimes it's overwhelming. I read shitty comments on YouTube. I can't reach out to my friends. I'm all alone. The weather is horrible. And it's just, sometimes I just sit there and cry in my truck because I'm like, I'm supposed to have a perfect life. It looks perfect, but it's not.
Interesting.
Because it's just a life, right? So it's not always easy, and it's not picture perfect. It's just a real life.
I appreciate your vulnerability too. I think that's, when you look at I don't know. I hate saying the word influencers because some people think Mike's an influencer. I'm like, oh, great.
I hate that word too.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Mike, aren't you that influencer? I'm like, I'm a human being. But your vulnerability is what makes this journey for many people, I think, who tune into you very beautiful and very attractive. And people get inspired by it. You started this, and I was going to ask you, you answered one of the questions, which were you lonely? And the other question I was going to ask you is what scares you? Because when you create the perception, and you're very different in many ways because you're not creating an image that's perfect. When you do that and you're super vulnerable, at the end of the day, like, what does scare you? Do you think you're going to be on this journey forever? Do you miss that stability? And what is the end? Like, I mean, I hate to say end. What is the next evolution of this process?
Right. Oh, wow. That's a very loaded set of questions.
Yep.
To put it simply, in terms of sort of fear I think is something that really drives me in a lot of this. I don't think I'm scared of like the things that you might typically think I would be scared of. Like, I'm not really scared of people. I'm not really scared of like wild animals, you know. I did have one run-in with a very dangerous cow last year that tried to kill me.
Mad cows.
Literally the scariest thing that ever happened to me. Not really scared of like the things that are so, like the cliche things. I think the things I'm scared of, I'm scared of not being able to manage my fear. I'm scared of, being in such a state of overwhelm, for example, from all the work and all the pressure that I might just like cave in. And I've had that happen a couple of times where, I just become so stressed out and vulnerable that I just have to take time off because I can't manage and nothing makes sense anymore. None of this makes sense anymore. So there's a quote that I have as my phone wallpaper. It's like one of my favorite quotes, which kind of speaks to that difficulty of, the free path. So it's by Albert Camus, was a French philosopher. And it goes like this. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion.
I love that. The existence, the rebellious existence.
Yeah, totally.
That's the name of your first book. You should put that as the title. I just titled your first book, whatever. That's very beautiful. Is there a moment where this shifted for you? Because often, and you understand this, often these turning points or tipping points in life are defined by traumatic moments that change us. Was it that?
Yeah. It was all the drama and all the fireworks.
Yeah.
So, I guess, it kind of started slow. So, there comes a point in your life where you might be like, you start to ask the initial questions. You're like, am I happy? Like, am I finding joy in this? And then you're like, wait, did I make the wrong choice? Can I undo this in any way? Can I change this? So it's like the questions kind of add up, and they added up for me as well. It was like one after the other. And eventually I got to a point where I just felt like, okay, well, I'm here. I'm unhappy. I don't know how to undo this because it's so much undoing to do. And what would I do next? So at that point, I remember just like crumbling. I went through a very dark period, about 6 months, living in London, where my relationship was over already. I was already kind of thinking about doing something else, but I was just so lost because I didn't know what, and I didn't know how to be happy. Nobody gives you the recipe for happiness. They're like, yeah, you can buy a nice pair of Prada heels or a Louis Vuitton bag. It's like, no, clearly that is not the recipe to happiness. So I went through a time that was like definitely the darkest time of my life. Really 6 months of like very dark, deep depression, suicide attempts, self-harm, a lot of drinking, drugs, very, very painful period. And in a way, I'm grateful for that because it's only when you're at the very bottom of the deepest pit that you can imagine for yourself, there is no other way to go than up.
Yes.
And so I came to a point where I just realized, well, I have nothing to lose. So I'll just go and take a risk and go travel and make videos with no prior experience of video, of filmmaking or YouTube or anything like that. But I just had nothing to lose. So I tried it, and it turned out to be the best decision of my life.
Isn't that the most amazing thing though about life? I mean, I think about it even in the primal state of fear. There's a mechanism, you might be interested in this. There's a mechanism in people that's the same mechanism in the animal kingdom. And have you ever seen like a cheetah? They would chase its prey. There's a sympathetic response that's fight, flight, or freeze that we're familiar with. But there's another phase of fainting or quitting. And it's typically called the faint response. And we recognize it in the animal kingdom because the cheetah is chasing the prey, and it could be a gazelle. Mm-hmm. And the gazelle, when it knows it can't outmaneuver and it can't get away, as a last-ditch resort, it stops and it faints and it pretends like it's dead. And the reason it does that is in the primal world, a predator is likely, this is biologist, likely not to eat that prey because it's sick or it's tainted.
Right.
But the neurological mechanism has to do with a shift from an elevated performance state, fight, flight, or freeze, to a parasympathetic state where you pile on yourself into a pile of nothing and you quit and you don't respond. And then in life, I mean, this is an analogy, but it could be literally, you quit and you have nothing left. You're crying in the shower, you're in tears, you're depressed. Because I've been there. I have been there. And it's crazy because my shift was starting my company with the energy that I was able to pick myself up to my knee, to my hands, to my feet.
Right.
And that's where you see profound growth and strength in humans because you're literally creating a resilience.
Yeah.
And you come back stronger, you come back more prepared, and you do amazing things. And literally, I think, likely, you could look at historical references of this and find the most profound innovation in as we understand it in our societies from human beings based on that trauma, based on that low and rising up from above. I'm proud of you. It seems like it's working. Like it worked out.
I'm not complaining. It's amazing. It's a beautiful experience. It's not forever. Nothing is. But, I think what this has all really taught me is to just find joy in the present, in the now, to, seek that experience of feeling alive, because I know what it feels like to feel like you want to quit and you don't want to be here anymore. And that's a terrible feeling. But life is so beautiful. There's so much to enjoy and to be thankful for. So, I think it's as horrible as that was, I'm happy that it happened because I can appreciate it all the more. And I'd say, appreciating the little things in life and just life itself, feeling alive is the most precious thing you can do.
Yeah, that perspective is a gift, even though you had to be at the bottom to get it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this before we move on to your travel. What now makes you happy? Is it moments? Is it, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah, just being able to pause and look at a tree and leaves and feel the breeze on your skin. I love running, so I do long distance running. So just every time I'm running, I'm ecstatic. My dog that I got recently makes me so happy when he cuddles up to me in the morning, and he's so fluffy and sweet, and he smells divine. That's what makes me happy. I mean, the YouTube stuff is amazing. It's great. I love the fact that it gives me the life that I can live now. But the fact that I have X many subscribers or fans, that in itself does not make me happy. It's really what that enables in my everyday life.
I love that. Okay, so you launched this world of traveling and documenting your experiences, and it is year 4? Mm-hmm. Wow.
That's correct.
That's a long time.
Year 5 now. Yeah.
Going on 5?
Yeah, going on 5.
Wow. That's a long time.
Yeah, but it goes by like a breeze. And when I started, I knew nothing. It was really cold turkey, going from an office job to doing all the stuff myself. I started kind of learning from YouTube University really about how to film stuff, how to edit stuff. And I remember there was like a point at the beginning where I was looking at travel content on YouTube, and it all looked so polished and so professional, you know, like all the crazy transitions, you know. Do you remember those transitions? With the wave turns into a mountain and turns into like a fish, and
yeah, you're like, what is happening?
I was like, is that what I have to do to be like successful on YouTube? Transitions, like how to make transitions. I was like, I'm not gonna learn that stuff. I'm just gonna like tell my story and not have to worry too much about like the fancy side effects, you know, the effects. So that's kind of what I did. I just filmed things simply and to the capacity that I could film them. And that's kind of become my style as well. It's just it's nothing fancy. It's kind of like, it's a bit poetic, it's a bit romantic, and it's a bit lovely, and it's a bit random sometimes, but it's not fancy.
I love it. It's perfect.
Oh, thanks. I like it that way too.
I started following you when you were in Mongolia and doing some stuff. And it's weird because I'm very... It's weird saying this. It sounds egotistical. I'm like very particular about my YouTube influencers. But it's like...
Influencers, that word.
Yeah. It's like I don't like the influencership. I like people who are... And you could tell, especially on the back end, if you do the editing and stuff, you could tell who's organic and who's doing it with a crew and a production.
Yeah.
I like just the people who are living the life. And time tells that story. Because a lot of people go, oh, I'm an overlander. And they go out and they go for a day in camp.
Yeah.
Well, that's a thing. But don't pretend like you live off grid in your van forever. Because you go to the hotel or whatever.
Yeah.
But your big thing was... travel, and then now it's a journey into solo travel, because you've always done it solo.
Yeah. I mean, most of the time traveling alone, sometimes with guides, you know, sometimes with friends. But the whole principle when I launched my YouTube channel at the beginning was to show that women can travel solo in adventurous ways. So I remember kind of like watching YouTube content around that time, just before I launched. And I was like, there's nobody in like travel YouTube, like women, that I can relate to. I mean, the whole travel kind of niche on YouTube was really all about luxury at that time.
Yeah.
It was like the waterfalls in Bali and the like 5-star resorts in the jungle, and, you know, and a lot of bikinis and like kind of like lifestyle / fashion / beauty travel. But I was like, that's not what I want to do. Like, I want to see a badass chick doing badass stuff, you know? And I couldn't find that. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go and do it myself.
It's so awesome.
It's like, if it's not there, I'm gonna make it. So that was really like the founding principle, was to just go out there and have adventures and show that, you know, anyone can do it, basically. And it has evolved a little bit, but really, I mean, it's just evolved from like being strictly about travel to just being more about my own personal journey. Because I realized a little while ago that as much as, you know, I can share the stories of other people that I meet along my travels to a degree, I cannot actually tell their story. The only story that I can tell is my own. And that may sound like narcissistic to some people. It's not about narcissism. It's about that personal perspective, your own growth. Like, I cannot follow someone for years and see everything that happens in their mind, but I can do that for myself, and I can be the experimental bunny, and I can show that and share that, and I can share with the world how a person can change and evolve. And I think, that's something that I do get a lot as feedback, is like, oh, I've really enjoyed seeing you change. I'm like, is that a compliment? I don't know. Maybe not.
It's better than regress. I've enjoyed seeing you regress over the years. Like, what?
Totally.
You have doing this solo travel, and you're actually doing it now in America in your Defender 110. How did the concept for that start? Because you've been doing world travel. Actually, before we get to that, because I'm interested in the world travel perspective, as I was looking at some of the places that you travel to, I noticed that they're the same places I've traveled to,
right,
which are, because they're the worst places on the planet Earth.
Maybe the best in some ways.
Some ways they are. And I think we could talk about that perspective.
Yeah.
But Yemen, Pakistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, you've been to the same places I've been to, and we've had different journeys. Why those particular countries? Because you had the ability to go anywhere. Were you like, What's the most dangerous place I can go to? That's where I'm going.
You know what? That's a question that I get asked a lot on like at border crossings. Like the last time I tried to go into the US and I got detained for a few hours because they're like, oh, wait, what are these stamps? Why did you go to these places? I go to those places because I know that what we hear in mainstream media, like in the news, is not the whole story. And I'm always keen to meet people from those places and hear their perspective. Show the places that they live in, show their culture, talk to them. And we don't really get a chance to do that very often in the world that we live in. So I wanted to bring that perspective, like, okay, you may know this and this and that about Afghanistan. Yes, there's a war. Yes, there's a Taliban. Yes, it's terrible. But that's not the entire story. There's different stories. Like, when I went to Afghanistan, I went skiing with
It's so funny just to hear that say out loud.
Yeah, with a ski club.
Did you actually use skis?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We had like gray skis. We put them on. We went up the mountain. We had to walk because there's no lifts.
Oh.
So it was like, we went up. There's a girl that I met who was my guide. She's one of the best skiers in Afghanistan. We are still friends. I'd say like sisters, really. And, so I went skiing in Afghanistan and then stayed in a village in the mountains and all these beautiful, beautiful places that I've been to that I just never thought existed. So I just find it nice to show that extra story and share that.
It's so fascinating because I'll put it out here because maybe we could do it together one time. We can go to Libya because I lived in Libya for a year.
Oh, wow.
And people would be like, Mike, you're crazy. And I'm like, I live in Tripoli. Like it's actually really cool. Like I eat at the sandwich shop and I have coffee every morning and I watch the Mediterranean and it's beautiful. I even looked at property there.
Really?
I was going to buy a beach house.
That's adventurous.
Yes. It was like, I was like, at that point in my life, kind of like your journey, I was like, I don't need anything. I'll buy a house in Libya and just start a new life.
Right.
And was super rebellious, but I was like, it's life. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't realize a lot of the things that are amplified, there's agendas, there's reasons why those things are amplified. And my big statement about this is like, if all your problems go away when you put down your cell phone, well, then you have your answer. Mm-hmm. That's the answer right there. Keep it down. And I find that fascinating that you've traveled to these places that seemingly people think are the most disastrous, dangerous places. Mm-hmm. And they sometimes have the most beautiful stories. What's your favorite country that you visited and why?
Oh,
no pressure.
I'd say there's probably two.
Okay.
Now three.
Okay, there's three. Let's
okay,
go.
So I'll start with like the obvious one, the U.S.
Yes.
And
really?
Yeah.
That's on the list.
Honestly, it's like a whole world in one country. And there's a lot of troubled history here, of course. But it's just so damn beautiful and grand and vast. And yeah, it's beautiful. Like visually speaking, it's probably my favorite country in the world, apart from...
I'm right here. You don't have to give me compliments like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was
awesome.
I was shocked. But then we've got, I would say, Pakistan and Mongolia. Those are my other two.
Ooh.
Yeah, Mongolia, because every time I go there, and I've been 3 times, the moment I land and I get out into the nature, out into the steppe, I feel completely free. It gives you that sense of, whoa, space.
You're very small.
Yeah.
And the steppe is very big.
Huge. And the sky just looks so much bigger in Mongolia. And the history of Genghis Khan and, all that. You know it. And the horses. It's just, there's nothing like it. And then Pakistan, because I spent a year living in Pakistan, making videos about Pakistan. And that country is beautiful because also, very misunderstood. But it just so happens to have some of the most diverse cultures.
It does.
Yeah.
Good food too.
So great. And you go from like the south and you've got like the Arabian Sea and the desert and beautiful cliffs and mountains, all very dry. And you kind of go up north and, in the very north, you've got some of the tallest mountains in the world, massive, giant, jagged peaks, valleys, never ending. It's gorgeous. And loads of, just kind, really, really kind people who, very welcoming, very hospitable. So those three: U.S., Mongolia, Pakistan. Weird mix.
No, I love it. I was about to do I got asked by Surfer Magazine to help assist them do an article on a Pakistani surfing female.
Oh, so cool.
And they were going to do it in the south. And then they were going to, because it borders with Iran, we were going to do an Iranian surfer.
Amazing.
And they were going to swim and surf together.
Wow.
And it's like, what? And you think about that, it's like, that's so beautiful.
It is.
It's so amazing.
And these are the stories that we never hear, right?
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, that's what you're for, which I think is really cool. So one of the things that we had talked about in preparedness is how do you stay prepared? You're an attractive woman who is doing solo travel. Semi-attractive?
Give me more.
Regress?
All of it.
So you're an attractive woman who does a lot of solo travel. And I think, man, if you were my spouse, if you were my sister, if you were my daughter, I would be very anxious about that. And you have to do certain things that are going to allow you to be super secure. And you talked to me about some things, and I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like, that's all you do? I mean, you don't have a shotgun or something? So you don't have anything, but you use sound tactics tied to common sense and logic. Can you explain some of those things that you do?
Yeah. People do seem to assume sometimes that I have a crew that travels with me that like watches my every step and takes care of me. That is not true.
Yeah. Back up, guys. You're on camera. Back up, guys.
And it's like, I mean, I guess, for some people it is unthinkable, but it is what it is. I'm here to break that mold and kind of show that there is an alternative way of doing things and traveling. But basically, the way that I go about these things is I don't do anything traveling that I wouldn't do back home. So say if I'm living in London or New York, I wouldn't just like go out drinking with people I don't know. I wouldn't, roam a neighborhood that I don't know after dark. Like, I would just take these basic precautions with me everywhere I go. So I'm always quite careful. But, I do take some extra things. But again, it's something you do back home, like sharing your location with a close friend or your family, when you're in an Uber. Same applies to me. If I'm like wild camping somewhere, I would send my location to my mom, the person that's in my family that's like the least likely to be extremely stressed out if they have to respond in case of an emergency. So these small things, and if I go to like a very remote place that is a little bit risky, I just try and make local contacts, whether it's a guide or someone that I have been chatting to on social media that is legit, that I can kind of like cross-reference. That's kind of what I do. But, anything can happen anywhere at the end of the day. Like I've, in the 4.5 years that I've been traveling, I've had some fishy situations happen. But at the same time, when I was living in London, I remember going to the supermarket on a Saturday night and getting, my butt was grabbed by a stranger and I couldn't react because he just ran away. And it's like, that's not pleasant. That happened in London, not in Yemen,
Yeah.
Or last year when I was camping at a beautiful campsite in the lovely and safe country of Montenegro in the Balkans in Europe, I got attacked by a cow and she headbutted me. I dropped to the ground. I thought she was about to kill me. I had this like headline going through my mind, like vegetarian YouTuber gets killed by cow in a freak accident while camping. I was like, that is not going to be me. So I got up and started running. Anyway, got stitches. But getting attacked by a cow is more likely than getting attacked by a shark or a wolf or a bear. But it happens. So it's things like that just make you realize, okay, well, some bad things could happen, but they don't have to. They don't have to. You don't have to live in fear of them happening.
Yeah. And I mean, for somebody who's solo traveled for 4.5 years and has been exposed to like the most dangerous situations potentially in the world and not having those encounters, that sounds like really amazing.
Yeah. In a way, like, I think there's also a very simple answer to that. Well, I mean, partial answer to that. It's really underappreciated by I think all of us. I'm really, really faithful to my intuition. And I know this may sound like all fancy schmancy and like weird and spiritual and new age, but I really think it works. You know, if I sense that I shouldn't be in a place or with people, I just make my way out of there. I leave immediately. I don't even question it because it's not worth it. You know, if I feel that this is not right, I will just not be there. I'll not stick around. And I think that's really a powerful tool as long as we learn to chew into it. You know, listen to our senses. Like, we have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to be in tune with our environments. There is something there, I believe. So that's my superpower.
Yeah, I think the woo-woo superpower you have is real. I mean, it's legitimate, right?
Yeah, right?
It's the inputs of the environment, using your senses and establishing whether or not that's secure. I mean, that's, you know, a lot of people don't understand like how that vagus nerve works. That registration of everything in your environment is giving your body cues. And if you feel, I think women intuitively have it where they're more sensitive to the environment and listen to that intuition. Yeah. Listen to your gut.
Yeah.
I mean, like the fact that happened in London. I mean, my butt was grabbed this morning at a coffee shop by some lady, and I'm like, why would you do that? I'm just kidding. Like, why would you do that? She said, I thought I saw it on YouTube. And I was like, whatever. But my intuition was like, get away from that.
But I'm glad that you say that because, you know, I think, a lot of people might think that it's some like magical thing that doesn't actually exist. But yeah, of all people, if you say it, then maybe it does.
Yeah, there's some science behind that. And I it's amazing to me that I see people tune into you and you have really aggressive engagement. Like, you're like smashing engagement right now on all of your channels. And I'm like, why is it so aggressive? To me, it's overwhelming because I know what that engagement's like on my scale, which is about, I would say, 1/10 of your scale. And especially for a woman, that seems very intimidating because I would think a lot of people who, especially because people are tethered to their phones, tethered to social, they look at that and they go, I have people come to me and they act like they know me. Right. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know, we're interacting. But then they cross whatever the line is, right? It's like whatever that is, the boundary. And it feels very uncomfortable. And you have to be getting inundated. I mean, this has got to be like overwhelming. How do you manage the balance of that?
Yeah, it's a blessing and a curse, both, I think. And it depends also, I think, on how you manage that within yourself. So I've had countless very diverse experiences over the course of the last 4.5 years in terms of how the internet has responded to my content, or even me personally. I've had a lot of criticism for various things, some justified, some not.
What? Criticism for what?
All kinds of things. Like, for example, there was once a campaign to cancel me. Oh my God.
Oh, I love that.
What a weird concept.
So weird.
To cancel me for something I never did. Like during COVID, people assumed I did something, which just was a complete lie and fabrication. And so that became quite real because at a certain point in that cancel campaign, people started making content about me, spreading that lie in a way that encouraged others to take action upon that. Real action in real life. So that's the scary part. And that's, in a way, it's helped me be a bit more distant, like just keep distance with all of this, the views and the attention. And I love the fact that I can live like this and that I can share my kind of vision for life with other people and also just live my life because that's nice. But I really try and not think about the views. I can't read all the comments because they really do affect me. So I read them for the first hour after I publish a video, then I just stop. I have to stop.
Way,
yeah, because it's like the difference between a YouTuber or like a vlogger, influencer, whatever, and a celebrity in the sense, there's a lot of similarities in the sense that people look at you, they watch your stuff, they're interested in your life, I guess. But the difference is that as a YouTuber, I don't have a PR team that can manage all this stuff for me. I don't have a bodyguard who can come and save me if something terrible happens. Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Right here. Whoa.
Wait, what's your number?
Jeez.
So that's kind of the difference, like you have to find your own ways to manage all the attention and all the energy that comes with that attention. So I just really try and like not pay too much heed to it. I just do my thing, and if it works out, great.
Man, it seems like it's working out.
Yeah, but I've had some weird encounters. Like I've had one person follow me to my house one time a couple of years back. I've had someone knock at the door of that house, a different person, asking if I'm in. I've had someone follow me to my hotel room at one point. So, like things like that have happened, but I try not to think about them too much.
Yeah, because that does sound, you're in Yemen and you're not having problems, and then you're dealing with people who are engaging with you on social, and it's a problem. I get that frequently, and it scares me, and I'm 6'1", 240 pounds. You're like a third of me. You're like 90 pounds, 4 foot tall.
I'm strong.
So strong.
Well, I've got a dog now, so he can hopefully protect me in a few months. And right now he's a puppy, so.
Yeah. Cute dog, though. So cute.
Thanks.
Last question.
Yeah.
I'm interested, because I know you have a vision of it. Where are you in 10 years?
Do I have a vision? Oh my God.
You got it now.
Where is it?
It's right here. It's right here.
10 years is a long time.
It is.
I think
where do you want to be in
right.
10 years?
I want to be a different person.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of. Like, not a different person as in like not myself, but I want to be
in a different place.
Like, I just want to evolve.
Yeah.
I want to like continue growing. Like if in 10 years I'm still doing this thing, that means I haven't really grown. Or maybe I haven't gotten everything out of it that I could have. So I think in 10 years, I would just like to be in a very different place. Not because I don't like this place. I love this place. I just think that I don't want to become stagnant.
Yeah.
And I always want to explore new things. So who knows, maybe I'll be doing homesteading, or maybe
I do that. So you come hang out.
I got a lot to teach me, I'm sure.
There's a lot. There's a lot to go through with these goats and these chickens. It's
amazing.
It's so fun.
Love goats and chickens. So, who knows? Or maybe I'll just live out in the wilderness, or maybe I'll write books or whatever. I'm here for it, I'll take it, whatever comes.
It's so amazing. I like how you're like fly at the seat of your pants, but you understand the importance of evolving.
Totally.
And that's so introspective. It's like very self-aware. And it's sad for me hearing you, knowing a lot of people want to do that, but they don't have the courage. If you had to give some advice to somebody who might be on the fence, what advice would you give them?
No advice, just, what are you willing to lose? And what are you willing to gain?
I like that. Very simple. Scary.
Totally. It's terrifying.
It's so terrifying. I will make this proposal now. We do a lot of seminars, and I know you're going to Alaska, which is going to be amazing. People are going to follow that. We'll have all the links and all the stuff for the podcast. On your way back in Utah, we do seminars, and we invite people to come in and tell their story. We could park your car inside of the auditorium thing that we have.
Cool.
And we could have basically a speaking engagement where we communicate and people ask you questions. But I'd love to give people the opportunity to do that. So I'm just putting it on your radar.
Yeah.
It's just, I know your calendar's like crazy.
That sounds awesome.
But it would be fun because then I could teach you about homesteading. We could do that survival stuff that I talked about. But you could get a break, but actually break bread. We call it Breaking Bread. Is the community project that we do.
Awesome.
Where people come in and like we had rally race car drivers that I race with, that are pro rally race car drivers come in and talk with the community. It'd be fun.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I'll be there.
It'd be awesome. It'd be awesome. Well, Eva, thank you so much. Where can people find all the stuff that you're doing?
Just on my channel, Eva Zubak, on YouTube, Instagram. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Mike.
It's been awesome.
Yeah,
all
what
right,
a
bye,
pleasure.
Guys.
Bye.